The rain beat hard against the windows of Coastal Bistro, creating a hypnotic rhythm that echoed through the cozy atmosphere. The golden lights reflected in the puddles forming on the cobblestone sidewalk of Main Street in the heart of Santa Monica. It was one of those nights when time seemed to conspire for people to seek refuge in warm and welcoming places. Sarah Johnson balanced a tray with 3 plates of shrimp risotto when she heard the dry sound of something heavy falling to the floor. The sound cut through the soft murmur of conversations and the discreet clinking of silverware against porcelain. She turned quickly, her brown hair swaying lightly, and saw a man in an elegant suit collapsed beside table 16 near the window overlooking the restaurant's inner garden. "My God!" screamed a white-haired lady from the adjacent table, bringing her hand to her chest. The entire restaurant stopped. Conversations ceased, forks remained suspended in air, and all eyes converged on the unfolding scene. Have you ever wondered how you would react if you witnessed a medical emergency right in front of you? Would you be able to act quickly, or would you be paralyzed by fear? Sarah didn't have time to hesitate. She placed the tray on a nearby table and ran to the man. He was unconscious, with a face pale as marble, lips slightly bluish. His dark grey suit was impeccable, but his breathing was almost imperceptible. Sarah knelt beside him, her waitress uniform, a white blouse and simple black skirt, contrasting with the elegance of the fallen man. "Someone call an ambulance!" she shouted over her shoulder while checking his pulse at the neck. Weak, very weak. The knowledge she had acquired in her nutrition studies at UCLA before having to abandon the course included basic first aid notions. She never imagined she would use them this way. "Sir? Sir, can you hear me?" she whispered, positioning herself properly. Her hands trembled slightly before finding the center of the man's chest. She began chest compressions, mentally counting the rhythm. 1, 2, 3. The movement was rhythmic, firm. She leaned over him, her hair almost touching the pale face of the stranger. With each compression, a silent hope that he would respond, that he would open his eyes and everything would be okay. Michael Thompson had entered Coastal Bistro only 20 minutes before, looking for refuge from his frustrations. At 45, he was a man who carried the weight of success on his broad shoulders and always erect posture. His blonde hair, slightly graying at the temples, was perfectly combed even after an exhausting day of meetings at his real estate development company, Thompson and Associates. He had chosen table 16 purposefully. It was in a more reserved corner, away from the curious glances of other clients who might recognize him. This was common after all. His developments were spread throughout the city, from Venice Beach to Manhattan Beach. His photo regularly appeared in business pages of newspapers, always with the same serious and controlled expression. On that particular night, he was particularly dejected. He had discovered that Frederick, his assistant for 5 years, had been playing both sides, leaking information about projects to competitors. The professional betrayal painfully echoed the personal wounds still open from his turbulent divorce with Helen 2 years before. When he ordered just red wine, a Chilean Cabernet Sauvignon, that usually calmed his nerves, the waitress who served him caught his attention, not because of her beauty, although she was definitely attractive, but because of the way she smiled. It was a genuine, warm smile that reached her brown eyes. It had been a long time since someone looked at him that way, without second intentions or interest in his bank account. Sarah had carefully noted his order, asked if he would like to see the menu, if everything was okay with the table. Small courtesies that, coming from her, sounded sincere. Michael watched her as she moved through the restaurant, greeting other clients, always with that same welcoming smile. It was when he felt the first stab in his chest. A sharp pain, as if someone was squeezing his heart with a vice. He tried to breathe deeply, but the air didn't reach his lungs properly. The pain radiated through his left arm, went up his neck. He managed to bring his hand to his chest before everything went dark. "Come on, Sarah," murmured while continuing compressions, her movements already automatic after 2 minutes that seemed like hours. The restaurant manager, Mr. Antonio, a bald man of about 50 with a grey mustache, had cleared the space, moving other tables to make way for the paramedics who arrived with admirable efficiency. When Michael finally opened his eyes, the first thing he saw were Sarah's brown eyes, shining with a mixture of relief and concern. She was leaning over him, loose hair framing her, delicate face, and for a moment he thought he might be dreaming. "Hi," she said softly, not stopping compressions until the paramedics replaced her. "Everything will be okay. Help has arrived." "The lady saved his life," said the older paramedic while checking Michael's vital signs. "The compressions were perfect. Do you have medical training?" Sarah blushed slightly. "I studied some first aid in college. Nothing major." Michael heard everything somewhat confused, still dazed but registered. Every word. As he was carried on the stretcher, his eyes didn't leave Sarah, who accompanied him to the restaurant door, getting wet in the rain that was still falling. "Thank you so much," he managed to whisper before the ambulance doors closed. 3 days later, already recovered and with his heart functioning normally after a successful catheterization at Cedars-Sinai Hospital, Michael returned to Coastal Bistro. He had researched the waitress's name with Mr. Antonio, Sarah Johnson, 28 years old, working at the restaurant for 2 years. He brought with him an envelope with $20,000, an amount he considered adequate to demonstrate his gratitude. After all, she had literally saved his life. Sarah was finishing setting up a table when she saw him enter. Her eyes genuinely lit up, and she came to meet him with quick steps. "Wow, so good to see you're well. How are you feeling?" The concern in her voice caught him off guard. When was the last time someone showed real interest in his well-being? "Much better, thanks to you." He extended the envelope. "This is a small token of gratitude for what you did." Sarah looked at the envelope without taking it. "I'm sorry, but I can't accept this." "But you saved my life." "Any person would have done the same thing," she interrupted gently. "I didn't do it expecting a reward." Michael was speechless. In his world, everything had a price. Everything was a transaction. From small favors between colleagues to million-dollar mergers. Sarah's simple and direct refusal left him genuinely confused. "At least, let me pay for your dinner tonight," he insisted. Sarah thought for a moment. Her shift had just ended, and she was hungry. "Okay, but as normal customers, no special treatment. It's funny how some encounters can completely change the course of our lives, don't you think?" Sarah didn't imagine that accepting dinner with this elegant man would alter not only her destiny, but his as well. "So, Sarah," Michael said while carefully cutting his grilled salmon, "what made you study nutrition?" They were sitting at table 16, the same where he had fainted. Sarah absent-mindedly stirred her Caesar salad, wondering if she should be completely honest. "I was always interested in how food affects our health. I wanted to help people feel better through nutrition." She paused. "I didn't get to finish the course, unfortunately." "Why not?" The question came in a genuinely curious tone without judgment. Sarah observed him. Michael had light blue eyes that up close revealed small expression lines. They weren't the wrinkles of someone who smiles a lot, but of someone who constantly frowns, thinking. "My father died 3 years ago. Cancer." She spoke the word as if she didn't like the taste in her mouth. "He had a small construction materials business here in Santa Monica. When he left, things became financially complicated. My mother, she has multiple sclerosis, and my younger sister was finishing high school." Michael stopped eating, paying full attention. "Someone needed to work to support the house. It was either me or let my sister drop out of senior year. The choice was obvious." "How old were you?" 25. I was in my 6th semester, almost graduating. She shrugged as if it was something ordinary. But I don't regret it. Family is family, right? Michael chewed slowly, processing what he had heard. In his world of spreadsheets and contracts, where every decision went through cost-benefit analysis, Sarah's choice seemed both noble and imprudent. She had thrown away years of study and a promising career for love. And you? Sarah asked, leaning slightly forward. How did you get into real estate? It was his turn to hesitate. Michael wasn't used to talking about himself, especially not to people he had just met. But there was something in the way Sarah asked, genuinely interested, without apparent second intentions, that made him want to open up. I started from scratch, he admitted. My father was an accountant, my mother an elementary school teacher, middle-class family here in Manhattan Beach. I studied business administration at USC, worked during the day, and studied at night. When did you decide to open your own company? At 28. I had saved every penny for 5 years, taken loans that gave me chills. The first project was a small 2-story building in Long Beach. I almost went broke before I even started. Sarah smiled. But it obviously worked out. Eventually, yes. It took years to build something solid. He took a sip of wine. Sometimes I wonder if all the sacrifice was worth it. What do you mean? Michael was silent for a moment, swirling the wine in his glass. When you dedicate your entire life to building something, you sometimes forget to build real relationships too. It was the most vulnerable thing he had said to someone in months. Sarah noticed his thoughtful expression and decided not to press. Instead, she changed the subject to something lighter, asking about his favorite places in the city. They discovered that both loved the sunset at Malibu Point, that they preferred the bustle of Venice Beach to the sophistication of Manhattan Beach, and that they had a secret weakness for churros from Venice Boardwalk. Michael was surprised to discover that Sarah knew as much about the city as he did, even though she had never had money to frequent the more expensive places. I love walking, she explained, especially on weekends. I take a bus and get off at random stops to explore. I've gotten to know every neighborhood in LA this way. Alone? Michael frowned, worried. Of course. I don't have much time to make friends between work and taking care of family. She didn't sound sad saying this, just factual. And you? What do you like to do when you're not working? Michael realized, embarrassed, that he didn't know how to answer the question. When was the last time he had done something just for pleasure, without agenda or commercial objective? Honestly, I don't remember when was the last time I took an entire day off. Really? Sarah seemed genuinely shocked. But that's not living. It's the life I built, he replied. But for the first time in years, the answer sounded hollow even to himself. When the bill arrived, Michael insisted on paying, as he had promised. At the restaurant door, they hesitated. The rain had stopped, leaving the air fresh and fragrant. Thank you for dinner, Sarah said. It was unexpectedly pleasant. For me too. Michael was surprised by how much truth there was in that simple statement. Maybe. I'll come back here from time to time. Sarah smiled. You'll always be welcome. They parted there, but Michael stood watching Sarah walk to the bus stop, her low-heeled shoes making little noise on the wet asphalt. There was something about her honest simplicity, her quiet strength, that left him intrigued in a way he hadn't felt in a long time. The following week, he returned to Coastal Bistro, and the week after that too. Michael! Sarah's voice sounded surprised and at the same time pleased when he entered the restaurant for the 5th time in 3 weeks. Your usual table. He nodded, following her to table 16. It was already beginning to seem natural, this ritual. Michael would arrive around 8, always after the dinner rush, and Sarah, when her shift allowed, made sure to serve him personally. The usual? She asked, although she already knew. Chilean Cabernet Sauvignon and grilled salmon with vegetables. Actually, Michael said, closing the menu without looking. "How about you suggest something different? I want to try what you think I should eat." Sarah laughed, a clear sound that made even customers at nearby tables turn to look. "Really? Do you trust my culinary taste?" "Completely." She brought the house seafood gumbo, a specialty she rarely suggested to more formal clients. Because they found it too regional, Michael tasted it with initial skepticism that quickly transformed into genuine approval. "This is incredible," he said, taking another generous spoonful. "Why don't you suggest this on the menus?" "You're the first client in a suit who accepts trying real food," Sarah confessed. "Most prefer the more international dishes. Most are missing out on a delicacy." It was a particularly quiet Tuesday when Sarah finally sat across from him. Mr. Antonio had released her early, and only 3 tables still had customers. "Can I ask a personal question?" Michael hesitated before continuing. "How do you manage to maintain this optimism with everything you've been facing?" Sarah fidgeted with the napkin, thoughtful. "I think I don't have a choice. There are days I wake up tired just thinking about everything I need to do. Pay bills, buy Mom's medicine, help Emma with studies, work here until my legs hurt." She paused. "But then I remember that they depend on me, and that, even with all the difficulties, we're still a family." "Emma is your sister?" "Yes, she's 18 now, just started college studying design at Santa Monica College. She's brilliant, you know. Sometimes I get jealous of how easily she handles studies." Sarah smiled with genuine pride. "She's totally different from me, all modern, full of crazy ideas, wants to work in advertising." "And your mother?" Sarah's expression became more serious. "Some days are better than others. MS is unpredictable. Some days she's fine, talks normally, even helps with some chores around the house. Other days," she sighed, "other days she can barely get out of bed." Michael listened in silence. He had never lived with chronic illnesses. His parents, although not rich, had always had good health and decent health insurance. Sarah's reality was a completely different world from his. "Is treatment expensive?" "Very. Insurance helps with the basics, but the better medications. Physical therapy, more frequent medical follow-up, out of our reach." She didn't say this with self-pity, just as a fact of life. "And where do you live?" "Santa Monica. A small apartment my father left, already paid off, thank God. 2 bedrooms. Emma and I share one. Mum has the other." Michael tried to imagine. 3 women, sharing a space that would probably be smaller than his closet. How did they have privacy? How did Sarah study for the college exams she had abandoned? How did Emma concentrate on her studies? Must be complicated. "We manage." Sarah shrugged. "Emma studies at the college library. I don't study anymore anyway. And Mom spends most of her time in the bedroom, so she has her space." Something in the casual way she mentioned not studying anymore touched Michael unexpectedly. There was so much knowledge in that head, so much desire to learn that she mentioned from time to time, wasted by necessity, not by choice. "Do you still want to finish the course someday?" Sarah's eyes shone. "Of course! It's my dream. I imagine having my own consulting practice, helping people eat better, especially children. There are so many children with nutritional problems due to lack of adequate guidance." Then reality returned to her face. "But that will have to wait a few years. Maybe when Emma graduates and gets a steady job, when Mom stabilizes her treatment. A few years could become a decade, then 2. It could." She met his eyes. "But at least I'll still be here to see it." The simplicity of the answer left Michael impressed. In his world, postponing a professional plan for a decade would be unthinkable. But for Sarah, the distant possibility of achieving it was still a reason for hope. When they said goodbye that night, Michael had to control himself not to make a crazy offer. Pay for her studies, cover her mother's treatment, something that would relieve the weight of all that responsibility. But he suspected Sarah would refuse any such offer with the same firmness with which she had refused the money on the first day. On the way home, driving his BMW through the illuminated streets of Manhattan Beach, Michael thought about how strange it was to feel humble in the presence of someone who, theoretically, had much less than he did. Michael spent the next early morning awake in his home office, a modern environment overlooking Manhattan Beach. The decoration was minimalist, designer furniture in shades of grey and white, some abstract artworks on the walls, everything perfectly organized like an architecture magazine. He opened his laptop and began researching. First, clinics specialized in multiple sclerosis in Los Angeles, Cedars-Sinai, UCLA Medical Center. He noted names, specialists, experimental treatments available only in the private network. Next, he investigated the nutrition course, UCLA, USC, Cal State, tuitions, possibility of transfer, scholarship programs. He mentally calculated, if Sarah returned to studying now, she would graduate in approximately 2 years. She could even do paid internships in the last semesters. Finally, he researched the company where she worked. Mr. Antonio had been the owner for 15 years, family business, always well rated by customers. A good man from what Michael observed, but certainly didn't pay generous salaries. The next morning, he called his personal assistant, Carlos. "Carlos, I need you to do some discreet research for me." "Of course, Mr. Thompson. What is it about?" "An employee at Coastal Bistro, Sarah Johnson. I want to know about the family's financial situation, pending debts, medical bills." "Is this about an investment?" Michael paused. How to explain that it was about something he couldn't define, even for himself? "It's personal, Carlos, and confidential." 3 days later, he had a complete report. What he read saddened him more than expected. The Johnson family owed 4 months of supplemental health insurance. They had a credit card at maximum limit, used mainly for medications. Emma had a partial scholarship at college, but still needed to pay 40% of tuition. Sarah also worked on weekends as a freelancer at events, serving at parties and weddings. Michael closed the folder, feeling a weight in his chest he hadn't felt since his own days of financial difficulty. But now he had means to do something about it. He started subtly. First, he arranged for an anonymous client to pay off part of the family's health insurance debt. Then, through a foundation he maintained, and which really existed, although Sarah didn't know, he had Emma receive a full scholarship for academic merit. He organized for Coastal Bistro to be selected to cater a corporate event that paid much above the normal rate, guaranteeing a substantial bonus for employees. Everything done in a way that couldn't be traced back to him. During this period, he continued his visits to the restaurant. Sarah seemed lighter, more smiling, although she attributed the recent improvements to luck and small miracles. "Do you believe in destiny?" she asked one night while cleaning the table next to his. "Why do you ask?" "Things have been improving so much lately. Emma won a full scholarship, said it was for the incredible projects she presented. Mom's health insurance was regularized because of an error in their system, according to what they told me. And Mr. Antonio gave me a great bonus because of a big event that appeared out of nowhere." Michael drank his wine, trying to maintain a neutral expression. "Sometimes things just align." "Yeah, maybe." She stopped cleaning and looked at him. "Or maybe someone is being very generous without wanting to take credit." For a moment Michael thought she had discovered, but Sarah simply smiled and continued her work. "Either way, I'm managing to save a little for the first time in years. I'm even thinking," she hesitated, "about going back to school. Not now, but maybe next year." Michael's heart raced. "Really? It's a crazy dream, I know, but with things more stable, maybe it's possible to take at least 2 subjects per semester at night. It would take longer to graduate, but—" "It's not crazy at all," Michael interrupted. It's what you should be doing." Sarah looked at him with surprise. There was an intensity in his voice she didn't expect. "You think so? I think you're one of the most intelligent people I've met." "Wasting. That would be a crime." She blushed slightly. "You barely know me." "I know enough." There was a moment of comfortable silence between them. Sarah finished organizing the table and sat across from him. "Why do you keep coming here, Michael?" The question caught him by surprise with its directness. "What do you mean? You're a successful, rich, sophisticated man. You must have a busy social life, better places to dine." She gestured to the restaurant around them. "Coastal Bistro is a good place, but it's not exactly upscale," Michael thought carefully before responding. "Maybe because here I feel normal. Normal. In all the other places I frequent, people see me as a business opportunity, a useful contact, a bank account." He swirled the wine in his glass. "You saved my life, remember? Not because I was rich, not because I could return the favor. You didn't even know who I was." Sarah remained quiet, processing his words. "Here," he continued, "I can just be Michael, not the CEO of Thompson and Associates, not the guy worth X millions, just a man who likes talking to an intelligent woman while eating seafood gumbo." "That's a valid reason," she said softly. "And you?" Michael dared to ask. "Why do you always treat me well, even knowing that I am what I am?" Sarah thought for a moment. "Because you're kind, and because, underneath all this sophistication, I see someone who seems lonely." The observation hit an exposed nerve that Michael had been trying to ignore for years. Since the divorce, since the betrayal of former partners and friends who revealed themselves to be opportunists, he had convinced himself that loneliness was an acceptable price for success. "Maybe you're right," he admitted. "Everyone needs someone to talk to," Sarah said simply. "You found that here. There's nothing wrong with that." When Michael left the restaurant that night, he felt lighter than he had in months. There was an honesty in conversations with Sarah that he found nowhere else. Zero artifice, zero hidden agenda. Well, at least on her part. Could you keep a secret like that, doing good for someone without them knowing? Or would the need to receive recognition be greater than the desire to help? It was Emma who noticed first. Sarah was tidying the house on a Saturday morning when her sister appeared in the living room with a stack of papers in her hand and a confused expression on her face. "Sarah, have you seen this?" She showed an official letter. "It's from the clinic where Mum gets treatment." Sarah stopped folding clothes and took the letter. Her eyes quickly scanned the content, stopping at the part where the amounts were. "It says here that someone paid for several of Mum's physical therapy sessions in advance. That's what I don't understand. They say it was an anonymous donor." "What anonymous donor, Sarah? Nobody here knows anyone with that kind of money." Sarah reread the letter, a knot forming in her stomach. "Show me the other." "Here, bills." Emma spread the papers on the kitchen table. Health insurance statement showing mysterious payments. Receipt for the full scholarship she had won at college. Even a note explaining that Coastal Bistro had been selected for a corporate event for merit and exceptional service quality. "This isn't coincidence," Sarah murmured, running her fingers through her hair. "Someone is behind this. But who? And why?" Emma sat next to her sister. "Sarah, the only new person who entered our lives recently was..." The eyes of both met, the same conclusion forming in their minds simultaneously. "Michael," Sarah whispered, feeling a mixture of gratitude and betrayal. How dare he? How had he managed to discover their personal finances and act behind their backs? The next day, Monday, Sarah could barely concentrate on work. She spent the entire day mentally preparing what she would say when Michael appeared for his usual dinner. At 8 o'clock sharp, he entered the restaurant as, always, greeted her with his usual discreet smile and headed to table 16. This time, however, Sarah didn't return the smile. "The usual?" she asked dryly, notepad in hand. Michael immediately noticed the change in tone. Sarah, is everything okay? Perfectly fine. In fact, we're all doing very well at home lately. Surprise scholarships, mysteriously paid bills, lucrative events that appear out of nowhere. How lucky we are, right? Michael's blood ran cold. She had discovered. Sarah, how long did you think you could maintain this charade? Her voice was low, but loaded with contained emotion. You investigated my life? Messed with our finances without permission? It wasn't like that. I just wanted to help. Help? Sarah laughed bitterly. You thought you could buy our dignity? Our gratitude? It was never about that. Michael stood up, trying to keep his voice low so as not to draw attention from other customers. I saw how much you were suffering. And decided to be our private savior? Sarah slammed the notepad on the table. Without consulting us, without even warning us? Because I knew you would refuse. Exactly. And you didn't have the right to decide for us. Tears began to form in her eyes, but they were from anger, not sadness. You turned our friendship into a lie. All this time you sat there, watching me celebrate these miracles, knowing they were manufactured by you. Michael extended his hand toward her. Sarah, please, don't touch me. She stepped back. You're just like all the other rich people I've served here. You think money solves everything? That you can control people's lives? You're being unfair. Unfair? Sarah laughed incredulously. I told you about our life, our problems, our difficulties, in confidence, as a friend. And you used all of that against me. Against you? I was trying to help your family, without our permission. And now, how do we go back? How do we return the money you spent? How do I explain to my mother that the improvements in her treatment were based on lies? Michael realized for the first time the depth of what he had done. In his mind, it had been a noble, generous gesture. He hadn't considered how Sarah would feel upon discovering. I didn't think. No, you didn't think, because people like you are used to solving everything with money. It doesn't matter what others feel. Mr. Antonio appeared discreetly. Sarah, is everything okay here? Yes, Mr. Antonio, Mr. Thompson was just leaving. Michael looked at Sarah one more time, seeing the pain and disappointment in her eyes. He wanted to explain, wanted to say that his feelings for her were real, that the help had been motivated by genuine affection, not by superiority or control, but the words wouldn't come out. Sarah, please, go away. Michael left the restaurant feeling worse than on the day of the heart attack. At least then, Sarah had been there to save him. Now, who could save? Him from himself. 3 weeks passed without Michael appearing at Coastal Bistro. Sarah tried to convince herself that she felt relieved, but the truth was that she missed him. She missed the conversations, the discreet smiles, the way he really listened when she spoke. She missed the friendship she thought she had made. The restaurant seemed different without his constant presence. Table 16 remained empty most nights, as if other customers instinctively avoided that corner that had become his territory. It was on a rainy Thursday, similar to that first night, that Frederick appeared at the restaurant. Sarah recognized him immediately. She had seen him a few times picking up Michael after dinner. Sarah Johnson? He approached with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Yes, that's me. My name is Frederick, Mr. Thompson's assistant. I came to bring a proposal that I believe will interest you. Sarah straightened, immediately suspicious. What kind of proposal? Frederick removed an elegant folder from his briefcase. A nutrition clinic in Orange County is looking for a responsible nutritionist. Excellent salary, complete benefits, growth opportunity. He extended the document. Mr. Thompson has nothing to do with this. It's a legitimate opportunity that arose through my own contacts. Sarah looked at the papers with suspicion. The offer was indeed impressive, much better than anything she could find with her incomplete education. Why are you bringing this to me? Because I believe it would be beneficial for all parties involved. All parties. Frederick hesitated for a moment, then decided on honesty. Sarah, you don't know Michael like I know him. He's a powerful, important man with a reputation to maintain. This obsession he's developed for you isn't healthy. Obsession? He's abandoned important meetings to come here, stopped attending social events, upset influential people because he spends every night at this restaurant. Frederick leaned forward. You're distracting him from his real life. Sarah felt a mixture of anger and hurt. And you think I should just disappear? I think you should accept this incredible opportunity and build a new life for yourself, a life you truly deserve. She reread the document. The position was everything she had dreamed of, a chance to return to her field, help people, earn enough to support her family comfortably. I need to think about this. Of course. But don't take too long. This type of opportunity doesn't appear twice. After Frederick left, Sarah stared at the papers. Part of her knew she should be suspicious that this was too convenient, but another part saw an escape route from a situation that had become complicated beyond repair. That night, she talked with Emma and her mother. "It's an incredible opportunity, Sarah," said Mrs. Linda, her mother, from her wheelchair in the living room. "You always wanted to work as a nutritionist, but it would mean leaving you." "Orange County isn't that far," Emma pointed out, "and with this salary, you could even rent a better apartment for all three of us." Sarah looked around the small apartment where they had lived for years. Maybe it was time for a fresh start. Maybe distancing herself from Michael would be best for everyone. "I'll accept it," she decided. Michael only discovered Sarah's departure plans when Carlos brought him routinely gathered information. "Boss, there's something you should know about Sarah." "Johnson, I don't want to hear it," Michael interrupted, not looking up from his computer. "She accepted a position in Orange County. She's leaving at the end of the week." Michael's fingers froze over the keyboard. "What?" "According to my sources, she accepted a position as a nutritionist at a private clinic. Very good salary, apparently." A terrible suspicion formed in Michael's mind. "Carlos, check if Frederick had any involvement in this." An hour later, Carlos returned with a grim expression. "Boss, you're not going to like this." The report revealed everything. How Frederick had arranged a fake opportunity, used company resources to create a fictitious clinic, all to get Sarah away from Michael. Where is Frederick now? In a meeting with the investors from San Francisco. Cancel it. Bring him here, now. When Frederick entered the office, he immediately noticed Michael's expression and tensed. "Boss." The meeting went. "Sit down." Something in Michael's voice made Frederick comply immediately. "Explain to me about this clinic in Orange County." Frederick's face went pale. "Boss, I can explain." "Explain how you used company resources to sabotage my personal life. I was protecting you. This waitress was taking advantage of your generosity." "Taking advantage?" Michael stood up, his voice rising. "She wouldn't even accept money when she saved my life." "Boss, you're not thinking clearly. Your reputation, your social position." "My reputation?" Michael laughed bitterly. "You destroyed any chance I had of fixing things with her. You thought you could manipulate my life without consequences. You thought you knew better than I do about what makes me happy." Frederick tried one last attempt. "Boss, she's not right for you. Different worlds, different classes." "Get out." Michael's voice was deadly quiet. "You're fired. Security will escort you out. And if I discover that you harmed Sarah in any way with this fake job offer, I will destroy you." Alone in his office, Michael stared out the window toward the ocean. Sarah had accepted the position and would leave in 3 days. How could he fix this? How could he prove that his feelings were genuine and not about control or pity? He needed to tell her the truth. All of it. It was Friday, Sarah's last day at Coastal Bistro. Mr. Antonio had organized a small farewell party with all the employees. Sarah tried to keep spirits high, but everyone could see she wasn't happy about leaving. "Are you sure about this, Sarah?" asked Carla, one of the other waitresses. "It seems like you're running away instead of pursuing an opportunity." "Sometimes running away is the smart choice," Sarah replied, but her voice lacked conviction. The party was winding down when Michael appeared at the door. Everyone in the restaurant turned to look. Some had heard rumors about the falling out between him and Sarah. "Mr. Thompson," Mr. Antonio greeted cautiously. "How can I help?" "You? I need to speak with Sarah, please." Sarah's first instinct was to refuse, but something in his appearance stopped her. Michael looked tired, worried, more vulnerable than she had ever seen him. 5 minutes, she agreed. They went to the small patio behind the restaurant, where delivery trucks normally parked. The setting was not romantic, but it was private. "Sarah, before you say anything, just listen. Please." She crossed her arms but nodded. "You were right about everything. I violated your trust. I acted without your permission. I tried to control your life with money." He took a deep breath. "But there was one thing you got wrong." "Oh, really?" "It wasn't about buying your gratitude or controlling you. It was because—" He struggled with the words. "Because for the first time in years, I met someone who made me want to be better. Someone who showed me what genuine goodness looks like." Sarah's expression softened slightly, but she remained guarded. "When I saw your family struggling, it hurt me, physically hurt, not because I felt superior, but because I had fallen in love with you and couldn't bear to watch you suffer when I had means to help." "In love?" Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. "Yes, completely, utterly in love. With your strength, your kindness, your intelligence, with how you put your family first always, with how you see good in everyone." Michael stepped closer. "I know I handled everything wrong. I know I hurt you. But please don't. Leave." "Michael, there's more you should know about this job offer in Orange County." Sarah frowned. "What about it?" "It's not real. Frederick created it to get you away from me. He thought he was protecting me or my reputation or something equally stupid." "What?" Sarah's voice rose in shock. "I fired him today, and I'll make sure you have real opportunities, legitimate ones if you choose to pursue them, but please don't make a life decision based on a lie." Sarah sat down heavily on a plastic crate, processing this information. "So you're telling me that even my escape route was manipulated?" "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." She looked up at him, tears forming. "Michael, how can I trust you? How can I know that anything between us is real when there's this power imbalance? Because I'm giving you all the power now." "What do you mean?" "I mean I love you enough to let you go if that's what you decide. I won't try to fix your problems with money. I won't interfere in your life unless you ask me to. I'll be whatever you need me to be. Friend, nothing at all, or—" He hesitated. "Or more, if you can forgive me." Sarah wiped her eyes. "You really fired Frederick?" "Yes. And you won't try to help my family without asking again?" "I promise." She stood up, looking directly into his blue eyes. "And if I ask you to stay away from me?" The question hung in the air like a knife. Michael felt his heart breaking, but met her gaze steadily. "Then I'll respect that decision, even if it kills me." Sarah studied his face for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, she reached out and touched his hand. "I don't want you to stay away." "You don't?" "No, but we need to start over. Completely. No money, no gifts, no fixing my problems. Just two people getting to know each other honestly." Relief flooded through Michael. "I would like that very much." "Good." Sarah smiled for the first time in weeks. "Then ask me out, properly, for a real date where you pay for your own meal and I pay for mine." Michael couldn't help but smile back. "Sarah Johnson, would you like to go out with me? Somewhere neutral where we can talk and get to know each other without any assumptions or expectations." "I would love that." They stood there for a moment, not quite knowing how to proceed. Finally, Michael stepped back. "I should let you get back to your party." Yes. Sarah paused. Michael, thank you for being honest. Finally. Thank you for giving me a second chance. 6 months later, Sarah was walking across the campus of UCLA, where she had managed to transfer her credits and resume her nutrition studies. The morning sun cast golden rays through the trees, and she felt lighter than she had in years. Her phone buzzed with a message from Michael. How was your first nutrition exam? She smiled while typing back, think I aced it. Meet you for lunch to celebrate? Always. Same place. See you there in an hour. Their same place had become a small cafe, near both the campus and Michael's office. Nothing fancy, just good food and comfortable atmosphere where they could meet as equals. True to his word, Michael had stepped back completely from trying to fix her life. When Sarah had applied for a partial scholarship, she had done it on her own merits. When Mrs. Linda had qualified for a better treatment program through her insurance, it had been because of new medical initiatives, not Michael's intervention. The only help he had offered was emotional support, driving Sarah to late study sessions, helping her practice for presentations, listening when she was stressed about balancing work and studies. Their relationship had developed slowly, naturally. First dates in neutral territory, paying separately, gradual introduction to each other's worlds. Sarah meeting some of Michael's business associates, Michael spending Sunday afternoons at the family home in Santa Monica. Emma had taken to Michael immediately, fascinated by his business acumen and eager to learn from him about entrepreneurship. Mrs. Linda had been more cautious initially, but won over by his genuine respect for their family dynamics and his clear devotion to Sarah. He's a good man, she had told Sarah one evening, different from his world, but good. When Sarah arrived at the cafe, Michael was already there, reading a newspaper and looking distinguished in his dark suit. But now, when he looked up and saw her, his face lit up with a genuine smile that was just for her. Successful exam, he asked, standing to give her a quick kiss on the cheek. Very. I remembered everything about metabolic pathways. Can you believe it? I can, actually. You've been studying non-stop. They ordered their usual salad for Sarah, sandwich for Michael, and coffee for both. The waitress knew them by now and brought everything without being asked. I have news, Michael announced once they were settled. Good news or bad news? Good, I think. Remember I told you about wanting to do something different with my business, something more meaningful? Sarah nodded. Over the months, Michael had confided how meeting her had changed his perspective on success and fulfillment. I've decided to start a foundation, a real one, not just for tax benefits, focused on education and health for low-income families. Michael, that's wonderful. And I want to ask you something. When you finish your degree, would you consider being our nutrition consultant? Help develop programs for children in schools, working families. Sarah set down her coffee cup carefully. You're offering me a job. I'm offering you a partnership. Equal footing, decisions made together, salary commensurate with your expertise. He leaned forward. But only if it interests you professionally. This isn't about us. She studied his face. 6 months ago, she would have been suspicious of his motives. Now she could see he was genuinely excited about the project itself, and that her involvement would be valuable professionally. Can I think about it? Of course. Take all the time you need. They talked about other things. Emma's latest design project, a movie they wanted to see together, plans for the weekend. Normal couple conversation that would have been impossible when their relationship was built on inequality and secrets. When they were leaving, Sarah took Michael's hand. I'm proud of you, you know, for wanting to make a difference. You make me want to be better, he replied simply, and you make me believe that good things can happen without strings attached. As they walked together toward their separate afternoon commitments, Sarah reflected on how much had changed. She was pursuing her dreams on her own terms, her family was stable and healthy, and she had found love with someone who respected her enough to let her maintain her independence. Not everything had been easy. There were still moments of adjustment, cultural differences to navigate, explanations to give to both their social circles about their unlikely pairing, but they had built something real on a foundation of honesty and mutual respect. What would you do if you had a second chance to restart a relationship without prejudgments or power imbalances? Sarah and Michael had proved that sometimes, when two people are willing to be vulnerable and honest, love can overcome any obstacle. The December sun shone intensely over Manhattan Beach when Sarah finally received her nutrition degree. Michael was in the audience, along with Mrs. Linda, who had improved significantly with the new treatment, and Emma, who now worked part-time at an advertising agency while finishing college. "I can't believe I did it," Sarah whispered to Michael after the ceremony, holding the diploma in her trembling hands. "I always knew you would," he replied, kissing her forehead gently. "You're the most determined person I know." The small group headed to a restaurant in Venice. Beach to celebrate, not too expensive, but not too simple either. A middle ground that represented well how their worlds had come together over the past year. "A toast," Emma raised her champagne glass. "To my older sister, who proved it's never too late to achieve a dream. And to Michael," Mrs. Linda added with a warm smile, "for not giving up on our stubborn one here." Sarah blushed, but laughed. The relationship with Michael had developed organically and respectfully. He had never again tried to solve her problems with money, although sometimes Sarah noticed the effort he made to restrain himself when he saw difficulties he could easily solve. Instead, Michael offered presence. He woke up early on weekends to study with her. He brought coffee and sandwiches when she had long study sessions at the library. He listened patiently when she vented about difficult exams or demanding professors. "Actually," Sarah said, setting down her glass, "I have news for you all." Everyone turned to her, curious. "I've decided to accept Michael's proposal. I'm going to work at the foundation as coordinator of nutritional programs." Emma clapped. "That's awesome. Are you going to work together?" "Not exactly together," Michael clarified. "Sarah will have complete autonomy in her department. I handle the administrative and financial part. And I already have ambitious plans," Sarah added, her eyes shining. "I want to implement nutritional education programs in public schools, create community gardens, organize workshops for low-income families." Mrs. Linda watched her daughter speak passionately about her projects and felt her heart warm. For a long time she had blamed herself for Sarah having abandoned her studies to care for the family. Seeing her daughter now, professionally fulfilled and personally happy, was the best medicine she could have. "Mum, how are you feeling?" Sarah noticed her mother's contemplative look. "I'm well, dear, better than I have been in years." Mrs. Linda smiled. "And you too? When are you going to make this union official?" Sarah almost choked on her champagne, while Michael turned red to the roots of his hair. "Mom," Sarah protested. "What? You've been together for almost a year. You obviously love each other. You have professional plans together." Mrs. Linda shrugged. "I don't see any reason to wait." Michael cleared his throat, regaining composure. "Mrs. Linda, with all respect, we're still getting to know each other. We don't want to rush anything. Nonsense. In my day, a year of dating was practically an engagement." Emma laughed at the situation. "Leave them alone, Mum. Each couple has their own pace." But the seed had been planted. During the way back home, Sarah and Michael walked along the beach in silence, each lost in thought. "Your mother isn't wrong, you know," Michael said finally. "What do you mean?" "About us, about making it official." He stopped walking and turned to her. "Sarah, I know we started in a complicated way, but this past year has been the best of my life. For me too. I'm not talking about marriage now, he continued quickly, but how about we move in together? You could move to my apartment, or I could move to yours, or we could find a place of our own. Sarah considered the proposal. The idea attracted her, but also scared her. Living together would represent a new level of intimacy and commitment. What about my mother, my sister? Your mother is much better now. Emma is almost graduating and gaining independence. They don't need you in the same way anymore. It was true. In recent months, Sarah had noticed how her family was more stable and independent. Mrs. Linda had even started a support group for people with multiple sclerosis, where she shared experiences and received emotional support. Can I think about it? Of course. Michael smiled. No pressure, no rush. 2 weeks later, Sarah had made her decision. They found a charming apartment near the beach, not too luxurious, but comfortable and well located. It was a perfect middle ground between their worlds. The move was surprisingly smooth. Michael made sure that decorating decisions were made together, respecting Sarah's taste as much as his own. The result was a home that reflected both personalities. 3 months later, the dream project. Sarah, have you seen the numbers from the pilot program? Michael entered her office at the foundation, carrying a folder full of reports. She was leaning over architectural plans, planning the expansion of community gardens. The past months had been intense, but rewarding. Which numbers? From the schools where we implemented the nutritional education program. The improvement in children's eating habits is exceeding all expectations. Sarah took the reports, her eyes quickly scanning the data. Really? We're seeing a 40% reduction in ultra-processed food consumption and a 60% increase in fruit and vegetable consumption. Parents are reporting positive changes at home too. This is incredible. Sarah stood up, hugging Michael enthusiastically. This means we can expand to more schools. We can expand to the entire state if we want. The state government wants to partner with us. It was the recognition Sarah had dreamed of. Her work was making a real difference in people's lives, and she had achieved this on her own merit, with her own skills and dedication. Michael, she said, still in his arms, thank you. For what? For believing in me, for giving me space to grow professionally, for everything. He kissed her softly. Thank you for teaching me that real success isn't measured only in money. In that moment, Sarah knew with certainty that she had found not only the love of her life, but a true partner. Someone who complimented her without trying to change her, who supported her without trying to control her. The proposal. It was a Friday night when Michael suggested they dine at Coastal Bistro, the place where it all began. Sarah found the idea nostalgic and agreed immediately. The restaurant was exactly as she remembered. Mr. Antonio received them with joy, remembering both perfectly. They sat at table 16, naturally. Remember the first time we talked here? Michael asked, watching Sarah examine the familiar menu. How could I forget? You almost died right there. She pointed to the spot where he had fainted. Best thing that happened to me. Sarah laughed. Almost dying? Meeting. You. During dinner, they talked about work, about Sarah's family, about plans for the coming weeks. Everything normal, daily, comfortable. It was when they brought dessert that Michael became nervous. Sarah, he began, his voice slightly trembling. Yes? He stood up from his chair and, to her surprise, knelt beside the table. The entire restaurant stopped to look. Sarah Johnson, he said, taking a small velvet box from his pocket. You changed my life in every possible way. You taught me what true love is. Compassion, strength. You made me want to be a better man. Sarah brought her hands to her mouth, tears already forming in her eyes. I can't imagine a future without you by my side. Will you marry me? The silence in the restaurant was absolute. All customers and employees awaited the answer. Sarah looked at the man kneeling before her, the same man who had entered her life so dramatically, who had made mistakes but learned from them, who had become her best friend and great love. "Yes," she whispered, then repeated louder, "Yes!" The restaurant exploded in applause. Mr. Antonio appeared with champagne on the house. Other customers congratulated the couple. It was magical and perfect, the way only life's great moments can be. When they finally left the restaurant, it was already late at night. They walked down the street where it all began, now as an engaged couple. "How did you manage to keep this secret?" Sarah asked, admiring the simple but elegant ring on her finger. "I asked Emma for help choosing the ring, and your mother gave me her blessing officially last week." "They knew?" "They knew. And they approved completely." Sarah stopped walking and kissed him passionately, right there on the street. "I love you, Michael Thompson. And I love you, future Sarah Thompson." "Future Sarah Johnson Thompson," she corrected. "I'm not giving up my last name." Michael laughed. "I wouldn't expect anything less from you." And so, on the same street where a man had almost lost his life, two hearts found their definitive home in each other. Sarah and Michael had proved that true love can overcome any difference, any obstacle, any misunderstanding, as long as there is honesty, respect, and willingness to grow together. What would you do if you found the love of your life in the most unexpected situation? Sometimes destiny places us in the right place, at the right time, with the right person. And it's up to us to recognize that opportunity and fight for it, no matter how different we might seem on the surface.